Morning.
Morning, and welcome to another Monday morning grit.
Yep, we got a guest today.
We got a great guest here today.
Mr. Matt North,
It's your boy,
a Tacoma native.
Matty N. Raps, as my friends call me, Matt North, Tacoma born and raised.
He's from the Hill. We'll get to that though.
We'll get to
will
that.
you tell us your address, actually?
Yeah, it's 2531 shit on my ass lane.
Oh, no, that's not
Nope. How was everyone's weeks?
Pretty good. Pretty
Yep.
uneventful for the most part.
Usually, I've learned as I grow older, uneventful's usually better than eventful.
Depends on the event.
Depends on the event. Dropping off your car for repairs and then getting the rental car.
Bad event.
Not a good event. No.
Yeah.
No. So I drop off my car at the repair shop. It's got to get the bumper replaced because I got rear-ended like a month ago, right? And I call the rental place and it's like, hey, is my reservation still good? And they're like, yeah, but there's only one employee here, so we can't like pick you up from the shop. So I had to like get a lift over to the rental place.
Oh, because it's not even near the place
Yeah,
where they fix it.
so yeah, like the shop was on 6th Avenue, but the rental place was in South Tacoma Way. So anyways, I go over there, I pick up my rental, so that white 2022 Chevy Malibu out front.
Oh, it's a
Ooh.
Malibu?
That's mine. It's been put through the ringer, dude. There's not a single wheel on that thing that's not busted up, you know?
It's the beater car.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know what it is, but like when people get the rental cars, they just beat the fuck out of them.
Yeah, they add that $20 for insurance, and they're like, I'm going to town. I'm going off-roading in this bitch.
That's what I did. So I'm gonna see what she can do.
Yeah.
But it is kind of
How
interesting
long do you have it for?
until they fix my car. Which I mean, they have the bumper at the shop, right? It took them like over a month to
Just
order
to get
it.
all the
But
What
I hear the
happened
supply
to your
chain
car?
is-
I was driving and got rear-ended. I was sitting at
Ooh.
a stoplight and just bam in downtown Tacoma, and like it's happened to me before, so like it was almost like a routine thing for me, like
Yeah.
because I've just been there before. I was just like, okay,
All right, another routine maintenance check.
insurance, please.
Money, give me money, money me, big money.
Yeah. And like the thing is, the thing that pisses me off is it doesn't even really do that much damage, but it does like you're hit with enough force, you want to replace the bumper just so like they take it off and make sure nothing else is busted up beneath
Right.
the bumper, right? Because like I don't mind having a dent in my bumper that much. I mean, I've paid my car off. I'm not
Yeah.
looking to resell it anytime soon, but
But it's a finely tuned machine, so if one thing
Yeah.
gets hit,
yeah, I don't want it to be like, it gets bumped once and then all of a sudden like the GPS on it is dead, right?
Ooh, yeah.
I mean, it happens. It happens. They're becoming increasingly sophisticated pieces of machinery.
Yeah.
It
And
is
that's how they get you.
It is interesting when you go into like a car of like a different manufacturer, like the different philosophy of like how the controls should be laid out. Like Honda, it seems like they don't want anything on the dash, so they have a lot of controls on the stalks, whereas Chevy, there's almost nothing on the stalks, and then there's a bunch of buttons and knobs on the dash. So
Yeah. You
It's
have a Ford, right?
I have a Honda Civic.
Honda Civic, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I rode in your car. I should know that.
It's okay. They're all the same if you don't really know.
Dude,
like,
oh my God. I wish I had a Honda. I have a VW Jetta.
Oh, you don't like it?
I don't like getting anything repaired because all the parts you have to import from Germany. So like I had to replace just the glass on my side mirror one time because I broke the mirror, and it was $80 just to order the glass mirror to replace.
wow,
Like none of the casing, nothing else. It was just $80 for the part
that's
to stick it on myself. Yeah.
awful.
Plus, like every time I bring it in, like I had a job interview like a few years back when I was in college at an auto dealership, and they're the biggest assholes on the planet. Like the first question they asked was, "What sort of car do you drive?" And I was like, "Well, I'm a college student, So I drive a beat up 2004 Jetta wagon. And they're like, oh, yeah, a lot of electrical issues on those. You run into that yet? And I was like, no, but now I'm worried about it. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean,
Hasn't happened yet.
yeah, that is good.
I got it for free, but, like, getting a car for free really is, like, a contract with the devil.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to put more money than the car is worth into it. I put, like, $6,000 into it to repair shit. So
I knew someone.
I've had it for 5 years, though. So
It's like $1,000 a year just for upkeep.
yeah. Plus, like, with how cars are now, like, it would be at least $10,000 to get any sort of used car that would be as serviceable as mine is. So
for sure.
I'm running it till the wheels fall off.
That's the way I feel about my car now that it's paid off now.
Yeah, dude, having no car payments is awesome. All you have to pay for is insurance, and it gets cheaper and cheaper every year unless you get into an accident. So
Yep.
So, any other kind of things happen to you this week? Matt, do you have any events this week or any Tacoma-related
I think.
incidences?
No, just the normal stuff, like
Yeah.
my roommates arguing with each other, that sort of thing. Like, Warren's seen my apartment. You've both seen my
I've been to
apartment.
your place.
Yeah, my roommates are all like in their 40s and 50s, and they're all like super angry, beaten down people. So they just get into fights with each other over like the smallest thing. Like
Communal restrooms are always a war zone.
The restrooms aren't even a point of contention. It's
Is it
always
the
like,
kitchen?
yeah, it's the kitchen.
Okay.
Like someone's been stealing forks for some reason. Yeah, like someone's been stockpiling all the forks.
Well, forks are very easy to replace.
Yeah, I know. I'm tempted to just go to Walmart right now and just buy a bunch of forks in bulk and be like the Robin Hood of my apartment complex.
Or even just every time you go to a restaurant, just keep one of your forks.
Well,
Yeah, just keep the plastic forks.
No, at a restaurant.
Oh, just steal forks from the restaurant?
that's how you become Robin Hood. You steal the forks to give to the
Steal
forkless.
from the
Just when
rich
you're,
business
when you're
owners.
done with your meal, you just take one fork and put it in your pocket.
Oh. I luckily have enough money that I haven't gotten to that level of just like shoplifting for convenience yet.
It's not even. It's so convenient. It's hardly even. You're not even going out of your way.
It's barely even a crime.
Well, you don't have to do anything extra.
Yeah. Honestly, I should start doing that. Yeah. I'll have to
If you
take
have
it
a
up with
fork
my legal
dilemma.
counsel, Ramon.
Oh, jeez, yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know if that you want that to be your legal counsel.
Well, I mean, he is the only legal professional that I know. He's a paralegal, which it would make more sense if I was in the legal profession, given my heritage. Like, he's an Ecuadorian lawyer. Like, that's not
No, they're famous for their lawyers.
really.
Yeah, they have one of the best law schools in the world.
Oh, damn.
Wow.
He has dual citizenship, so
It's
maybe I
not-
should bring that up.
That's not true at all.
It's like we were talking about the Ecuadorians. They're always lying.
I can never tell if James is lying. Because, like,
Always lying,
his voice
man.
is so, like, monotone no matter what that he could say something that's entirely false, and I just take it as
Yeah,
gospel.
especially when I'm lying.
Yeah.
Are you Ecuadorian by chance?
No,
Okay.
I've hardly
Yeah,
met any
we covered
Ecuadorians.
that on American Super Squad.
Yeah.
We talked about how Ecuadorians are all liars.
Yeah, well,
Yep.
That's
we
from an
talk-
Ecuadorian himself.
We talk
so.
about Tacoma in this podcast,
Oh.
so if you don't mind redirecting the subject matter,
Okay.
back
Okay.
towards something a little more local.
All
Yeah.
right. So, anybody else on this podcast registered to vote in Pierce County?
Yes. Oh my God,
Okay,
you
yeah.
got that letter too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. 460,000 partial Social Security numbers leaked from the Pierce County Auditor's Office.
Partial?
Partial. So
So
it's
does
just
that
the
mean, like-
last.
does
It's
that
the
mean-
last four.
Oh, okay. Because I was gonna say, what about like one?
No,
Like,
no.
imagine,
no.
hey, I got somebody's partial Social Security number. One of the numbers is 7.
It's so funny how they were like, "Oh, it's okay. It's only the last 4 digits," and it's like those are the most important digits.
Those are
Yeah.
the ones you use.
We
for
can-
things.
You can guess the other ones if you know like what hospital and what area they were born in. Like,
Yeah,
I think it's the middle 2 are based on what hospital you were born in.
that's crazy. Just to think that like
What's your Social Security number?
I'm not gonna. Well, it's 1120.
well, like
joke.
the thing is,
Text 1120 joke.
oh
to get
yeah,
my
yeah,
Social
yeah,
Security number.
The thing is, like, it wasn't like a breach of security in the way that you like think it. They just gave it to somebody. They gave this somebody requested voter information, which is public record, right?
Yeah.
You're allowed to request that. And they just surrendered all of this. And then later they were like,
they just dragged the Excel file into the email and were like, here you go.
yeah. And then somebody was just like, oh shit. And here's the thing, I'll bet it wasn't even the auditor's office that was like, oh shit. I'll bet the person that requested the information
That's what it made it sound like.
saw that and was like, are you sure you're supposed to be doing that?
Right. They were like, in the letter they said the person we sent it to is being very cooperative, which makes me just think like one guy requested voter information and
Do you think people are hitting him up now, like who want to use that information for
Probably.
bad things, and being like, "Hey, I'll give you $100,000 for this information"?
Ooh, I wonder.
And then he's like, "I don't know if I should be unscrupulous with this or not." And so
I mean,
he's debating in his mind about what to do.
Apparently he's being cooperative, so I think it's unlikely that...
Yeah.
Cooperative by gunpoint. They got a gun to his head, like, "All right, you do what I
they
want."
got him in a basement now, yeah.
He's being very cooperative.
I'm not too worried because the kind of guy who requests voter information doesn't seem like the type of guy who would break the law. It seems like a law-abiding citizen.
Unless he's breaking white-collar law.
Yeah, but I mean that's a very like blue-collar like citizen sort of thing to do. Like if you're doing white-collar crimes, you don't have time to ask for voter information. You're too busy investing in crypto.
Yeah, I disagree.
There's a puppet master.
Voter fraud, that's like the foundation of kleptocracy, you know?
Yeah. I've been watching a lot of well, we'll keep it Tacoma based, but I've been watching Boardwalk Empire and there's
okay.
a lot of
Empire's nice.
voter fraud in that
You
show.
know, actually takes place in Tacoma.
Honestly, there are
You're-
a lot of
you're-
similarities between Atlantic City and the early starts and, you know, how Tacoma started out. So
Okay.
Yeah.
I can talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, I've got one more news story.
Yeah,
I'd
wait,
like to-
have we finished? Because I do think this is very interesting, the leaking of the social
Yeah, no,
security.
No,
I mean,
yeah,
we can-
everybody's
we can,
pissed
we can
about
stay
it.
on this. Yeah, I mean, like the thing is, with this, like, it's definitely gonna shake up like the auditor's office. Like everything's gonna have to change. Like this is like one of those security breaches where like all the practices in that office are right now being reassessed.
Is there
Yeah.
going to be like a class action suit, or like what did they say in the thing besides just like, "Hey, we're sorry"?
If I'm not mistaken, it was like maybe consider changing a password or two.
Because you
maybe.
can't change your social security.
No,
number.
you can't. You can't. So I mean,
what password could you change?
I don't know. I mean,
Oh,
I was
maybe
sort
like
of.
if your PIN number is your last 4 of your social security.
Well,
or
I
something
was
like
sort
that.
of just being facetious. Yeah, being facetious. I can't remember what it was. It was like, yeah, something about like maybe look into checking your credit. That was it.
That's
it was
what
telling
pissed
you to
most
check
people
your
off.
credit score.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Them putting it on
because
you.
maybe
Yeah.
your credit, somebody got a credit card in your name with that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
information. 'Cause
exactly.
That's what they can
Yeah,
do
so
with
that's that. It was telling you, hey, you can get a free, credit score because of like federal law allows you to get one free annual one.
it. Oh, okay.
But yeah, exactly what you were saying, Matt. Like it is like they're like, well, now it's on you, and it's like
Literally, yeah.
you're the one that leaked the information, right? Like
It should be on you. Like,
exactly.
and a guy that I talked to at a bar about it, like we all had the same moment where we were like, "Oh, you got the letter too?" Like, and we had this very adult conversation about it. And he was this older gentleman, and he was like, "They got a class action lawsuit on their hands because they just released like thousands of people's social security number, like."
Yeah.
That's a big. That's a
It's
big thing.
huge. It's
That's
a
the one
huge
thing
fuck
you're
up.
not supposed to do with people's social security number
Yeah.
is to leak it,
Yeah.
and it's also very
Yeah,
easy
right.
not to do it.
Don't do it.
I worked in
I think
insurance.
it's just a stupid system that we all have one number that's like you're supposed to keep it secret. You have a
It's on you to keep it
You
secret.
have a secret number.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a secret number that they're not supposed to tell everybody else.
Yeah.
It's like it's like a name that you don't know that nobody else knows. Like what is like this seems so stupid. Only the government knows, and you're only supposed to communicate it with like your company. Like
Not even that. There's plenty of other like entities that like will
Request
ask you your
it.
social security
so
number.
then they're like on the inside of this like people who know, and some people aren't supposed to. It's just like it seems such a stupid idea.
I mean, there's probably at least 50 organizations that have anybody's social security number right now.
I had to
and-
collect people's
and-
social security numbers all the time.
Wow.
Working in insurance, because I would issue contractors bonds,
Right.
and in order to do that, you need their social security number to run a credit check
Gotcha.
to make sure that they're financially stable enough to have a bond in their name.
Yeah.
And like, it was so easy not to record that information. Like, we weren't allowed to record it,
right. Of
so
course.
we would just get it over the phone, put it into the computer to like issue the bond, and then just forget about it.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
that's the easiest way to not leak someone's social security numbers, to just forget.
In the Army, your social security number used to be on your dog tags.
Really?
You know those
Interesting.
little stamped pieces
Yeah,
of
that's
metal
what's
that
on
are
it is your
that are
Social
very
Security.
easy to lose.
Yeah.
and
When did
you-
they change that?
You gotta take it right
Uh,
off someone's neck.
It was only like 6 years ago, I think
Wow.
they changed it. Yeah. They were
Whoa,
like,
really?
yeah, they were like, no more social security numbers. Now you use your DOD ID number.
Yeah. And that was
So-
probably because a bunch of people had their social security numbers leaked.
Oh,
and-
no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
'Cause it's so easy. Like, even if you're over like abroad fighting in Afghanistan or whatever, like all you have to do is like kill a soldier, take his dog tags, and then you can start a bunch of credit cards in his name. And
You ever lost a
that's
piece
insult to injury.
of... I mean, it doesn't even have
Yeah,
to be
that's,
like
that's
that.
the spoils of war,
You-
though.
You-
yeah,
I
You
mean,
kill
the
a
victor.
man, you take his dog tags. Now you gotta start a credit card.
But it's
in
not
his
even
name.
that like complex. Like, you ever lost a piece of jewelry or like glasses or a phone or anything like that? Like something you normally keep on your person. You ever lost one?
Yeah,
It's as simple as that when you put it on dog tags, right?
especially jewelry. I've lost jewelry
Yeah.
all the
Well,
time.
but I kind of like this idea of like, if you kill somebody, then you get to start a credit card in their name.
You don't even have to do that. You just got to steal their dog tags, though.
Yeah, but I want it to be this way.
You want it.
you want it to
oh,
be that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems like. You ever seen that symbol of the? It's like in Norse mythology of the snake eating its own tail.
Oh yeah.
That's basically what that system is.
No, because you're taking it from the enemy. You're starting a line of credit in the enemy's name.
But they don't have social security numbers. They're the Taliban.
Well, it depends who you're
you
fighting.
don't need to have your own. If you have someone else's, now
no,
you have
no,
one.
they
Oh,
get to do it to us.
Oh well, that's not fair.
Seems fair to me.
Yeah,
have
honestly, I'm
plenty of
more on board with
advantages.
James at this point, 'cause yeah, we're like carpet bombing them, but you know, if they,
And then if they get us,
if they
they
get us-
they get to run up some debt.
yeah,
I
they
don't
get some
get-
free debt.
Yeah, but if I try to take war trophies home from Afghanistan, they lock
They
me
try
up
me
in
at the
Fort.
Hague.
Yeah,
What's-
exactly.
What's
what
going
What
on?
are the rules about trophies?
You, like
It's a no-no?
Yeah, it's a
You can't-
huge no.
You can't take anything.
No, not really.
When did that come about? That seems
Probably
weird.
after Vietnam, 'cause
Yeah,
people
I
were
think-
taking like Vietnamese people's ears and shit back
Yeah,
home, like
I-
it's a normal thing to do.
Yeah, I think Vietnam was one of those things where it's like everybody took a step back and they were like, maybe we should reevaluate how we do business.
You think it was Vietnam though?
Probably, if I had to guess. Yeah.
'Cause
But
that's
it's
like
just an American thing. We don't pick them up. We don't have spoils of war then.
No, I mean, like
I'm
there
pretty
is-
sure
it's
there
not like in
are
a Geneva
international
Convention, is
laws
it?
against that.
it's
I don't
probably
think it
it's
is.
probably like the some of the other like conventions or treaties that govern war.
If they have rules where you're not allowed to use like square bullets anymore, I think they would put in like cutting off people's fingers for
Yeah.
trophies in
Yeah.
there somewhere.
I don't remember reading it. I did read it.
You haven't read the entire Geneva Convention?
Well, the table
Doctrine?
of the table of contents.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Did a quick
there's-
skim.
You also have like a few other big treaties that govern the how we fight wars and like how we govern people and how they behave in war. So, I mean, I'm not
crazy.
sure.
I heard that all's fair in love and war.
You know.
Yeah, that's why I cut all my girlfriend's fingers off
Oh,
after I broke
jeez.
up with her. Yeah.
Yeah.
All's fair in love and war, right?
Yeah. Well, I think we're straying too far.
Right, this is no longer Tacoma related.
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
So the other thing I wanted to pull up is Tacoma finished its pilot program where it was giving like certain families $500 a month, no strings attached, basically as like a guaranteed
UBI.
income research project, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
a bunch
really?
of cities
Wait, was
have
there a
been doing
way I
that.
could have signed up for this and I didn't know about it?
I
Probably.
think it was for families typically.
Okay,
So
that makes
Yeah.
sense. I don't have
yeah,
a
but
family.
but Washington is looking at. There's actually a bill in the legislature that's going to start a statewide pilot program for guaranteed income, and it's based on like the median rent in your area.
Okay, that's
And
kind of cool.
yeah,
Damn.
I actually have the name for it down if anybody wants to look up further. It's the Evergreen Basic Income Pilot Program.
Oh,
Mm.
cool.
So and this isn't like Washington's not the only place where these programs are being sort of tried out to see, what are the effects of giving people guaranteed income. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of conclusive findings come from the Tacoma program. Right now, I think it's the University of Pennsylvania
Yeah.
is the ones that are analyzing the data from it to give us like, numbers like, did it help them improve their credit or did it help them be more secure in their food and stuff like that?
Right.
But from anecdotes right now from some of the participants, things seem mostly positive. It seemed to have helped people out a lot, not
Yeah.
having just that extra income, no strings attached, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do
From
you
a
think it worked?
I think it. So that's an interesting question because it sort of brings up what is working. If you like improve somebody's living condition, like how much do we want to improve it in order to consider this a victory? I
Mhm.
mean, is it how effective is it, right? Like
Yeah.
how much does this money go, like how far does this money go, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I think the state one is going to be really interesting because it's based on median rent in your area.
Right.
Because it reminds
So you can work that system pretty well if you're living in a place that's below the median rent. Then you can dedicate a good chunk of that money towards other expenses as well.
for sure. And when I was in the Army, we had BAH, basic allowance for housing.
Yeah.
And it was like
yeah.
Oh,
it was
okay.
like $2,000 a month that was like set aside so you can pay for rent. If
Right.
your rent's below that, you can pocket the rest too. But like not having to worry about paying for rent is just incredible.
huge.
It's such a freeing feeling,
Yes.
right?
That's the thing that like most people are
That's
worried about.
That is the American dream.
yeah.
For sure.
And with statistics nowadays, like I think you guys have probably heard it, like no one making minimum wage anywhere in the country can afford a 1-bedroom house, no matter where you live.
Right.
So
But
having basic universal income to cover that main expense would be life-changing for a good number of people.
for sure.
Good on Tacoma, I suppose.
Yeah.
Good on Tacoma, especially.
Yeah, for sure. And I think people are warming up more to the idea of guaranteed income because the stimulus checks during the pandemic were just such a big help for so many
Yeah.
people.
It was a godsend for a lot of people.
Absolutely. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops. It seems like at least some of the town halls that have been had regarding that bill, there's a lot of positivity, especially from advocacy groups. There's of course some opposition. There
Right.
never isn't, opposition. But we'll keep monitoring this as it develops. But yeah, good on Tacoma for doing a little research for the rest of us, huh?
Oh,
yeah.
Yep.
Being a testing ground.
So I think we'll get into the main meat and potatoes here.
Yeah.
You
We
are
brought Matt
from
North because he's a local
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hilltopian.
Born and raised in Tacoma, lived in Tacoma all my life, most of it on the hill, a.k.a. Hilltop,
Right.
a.k.a. New Tacoma, whatever they're calling it now.
Do they really call it New Tacoma?
I think
Yeah, that's something I wanted to talk about a little bit because
okay.
I've always been an enthusiast, not an expert in Tacoma history.
Right.
I think I mentioned to Warren before, I had a really great history teacher in high school. She built her own curriculum based on archives in the Washington State Museum History Archive.
Right.
Oh, that's
like,
cool.
not out of any textbook or anything, and it was
Okay.
just entirely how Tacoma was founded, as well as like some things that aren't really mentioned as much.
Right.
Because doing my own research online, Like any mention of Hilltop is basically non-existent in historical documents that are published by the city.
Oh,
Like,
interesting.
They don't even like to mention that Hilltop exists.
Well, is it, do they just call it something else, or they don't?
Yeah, they just lump it in with either New Tacoma or East Side Tacoma. Like they don't consider it one of its own neighborhoods.
So
which
what makes it distinct from those neighborhoods to you?
Well, the fact that it's always been considered its own neighborhood, like even through the founding of Tacoma, one of the early settlers here was a black man. It's a really interesting story. Oregon, for the longest time, I think up until like the early 1900s, had a law where black people weren't allowed to own their own land in
Oh.
Oregon.
Wow.
So a man from Mississippi came up the Oregon Trail, found out that he couldn't own land in Oregon, and he was like, well, I'm just going to go further up north to this new territory, Washington, and build my
The
own
rest
settlement.
is history.
Yeah, and the rest is history. There's contention on who first founded Tacoma. I think the very first person was some Swede who built a lumber mill on what's now the port of Tacoma. Then that fell into disarray.
Was
and
it
then
Foss?
I think it might have been Foss.
Yeah.
Yeah, Henry Foss, which is now a high school. All
Uh-huh.
the schools and a bunch of the streets are all named after different figures that helped settle.
Yeah,
and
like
build up
McCarver
Tacoma.
and
McCarver,
Carr, I think.
Sprague, Carr.
Yeah.
Carr was one of the early settlers. McCarver was actually a general and then a rail tycoon. It's funny because the term City of Destiny, which is one of the tag names for Tacoma,
right.
comes from all the settlers who came here and settled here and built up all this infrastructure in anticipation of them building the railroad terminus for the Intercontinental Railroad.
Oh yeah.
And that didn't happen, but they built up all this infrastructure, and it turned into a boomtown because they were looking ahead at, this being the new metropolis like Seattle. Like, that's what they thought the railroad terminus was going to do.
Right.
So all these people built up infrastructure here in anticipation of that. They built up the docks, the port of that's now the port of Tacoma. Built all these hotels and hospitals and churches and
Wow.
all this residential stuff in anticipation of that, and then things didn't quite go our way there.
Okay.
Interesting.
But Hilltop specifically has always existed as, with most towns, as the working class neighborhood.
Right.
Like, that's where all the immigrants lived. There was a large Slav population there
Okay.
for a long time because a lot of the early immigrants were all Slavs from
Yeah. No. I mean,
Eastern Europe, Slovenians.
state websites still or state services. One of the main translations you can get everything in is Russian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always been a large Eastern European population here.
Yep.
In Hilltop specifically, and of course like working class white families, black families, Asian families, the whole gamut. Like, it was always sort of a melting pot of families there.
So what is it that makes Hilltop?
Well, it's on top of a hill. That's why
That's a
it's
great
called
answer.
Hilltop.
It actually is a nice answer.
Yeah, it's a very easy answer. Like, it makes the most sense out of a lot of the neighborhoods here. Like, there are usually very utilitarian names for all the neighborhoods.
So
here.
where would you say the boundaries are?
I'd say, well, it depends who you ask. If you
Yeah.
ask someone
Well,
in
I'm asking you.
the 1900s where it was just on the top of the hill after.
At the very top, just the pinnacle?
Well, it sort of slopes down as well. Like, I would consider I lived on Hilltop even though I was on, like, the slope going towards downtown because it was all connected to the same neighborhood. I went to the same school as all the kids on Hilltop.
Because that's the
Right.
thing, is the top of the hill is only a very small spot, really.
Yeah, it's like 10 to 20 blocks maybe.
Warren's nodding his head.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. I mean.
So would you say, how far down the hill does it go?
I'd say once you reach UW Tacoma,
Okay.
once you reach UW Tacoma,
Then that
you're off
becomes
the hill.
UW Tacoma District.
Yeah, then that's like New Tacoma
Or
whatever
the
they're calling it.
brewery district.
Yeah, they're
if
trying to
you will.
make the brewery district a thing.
There are a lot of breweries there.
There are.
now.
Now.
they all
Well, yeah,
just moved
I mean,
in.
that's something.
The
I
Harmon
kind
was
of,
there forever, but
yeah. I mean, that's something I kind of want to ask you about. Is like you've probably seen tremendous change in Hilltop.
yeah.
I mean, when we talk about Hilltop normally on this cast, we throw in
Usually
the big G word.
Yeah, or we put we say it.
Big
with a funny
G
word.
word.
The
You know,
big
if you
G
know-
word?
The big G word. If you know what I'm talking- Oh
Gentrification.
yes.
I'm calling it out.
Yep.
Yeah, I grew up in Hilltop in a very interesting time because the peak of what was considered like the heyday of Hilltop was late 70s to late 90s. That's when all the gang activity started. I watched a documentary about
Did you
it.
ever think about joining a gang?
No,
Okay.
because I knew from a very early age that I was not the
They're
right type
bad.
of crazy white boy to join a gang. There are white people who join. Like, one of my friends was a Crip, and he was white, but
Mhm.
he was very into gang activity, and now he's a father. So
Oh,
Ah,
so
it's
it's
funny
a
how
very
that
fast
progresses.
life. It's a
Yeah.
very fast life. You got to age up pretty quickly.
so you said you were watching a documentary about it.
Yeah, it's the height of it. If you have to pinpoint a certain year, it would be 1988.
Mm-hmm.
Because it connects to Los Angeles. Because in the early 80s in LA, they were really starting to crack down on gang violence.
Right.
So a lot of gang families and gang affiliated families were feeling the heat.
They had to
and
pack up north.
They had to pack up north. A lot of them settled.
They got their covered wagons. And
Yeah, went on the old Oregon Trail,
Right.
aka I-5, and they came up. Some of them settled in Portland, some in Seattle, but most of them settled in Tacoma
Okay.
because of the property values. It was
Right.
very cheap housing. It was a working class neighborhood. So
And the view.
and the view was great too. So
On
they're
the
like,
top of the hill?
yeah, the view is amazing. It's
Right.
still immaculate. You
No,
can
it
see
really is.
you
Oh, I
can
don't know
see
about
Mount Rainier
immaculate.
from Hilltop. You get a better view of it than up here in north
That's
end
true.
Tacoma.
Yeah.
Definitely.
No, for sure. And like so.
It almost seems to me like it's weird because in most places, the place with the view is the nicest or most bougie place.
Yeah.
But here, the hilltop is actually, it's going to flip.
Oh yeah. Like, it's getting gentrified as we speak. Like,
There's just
I
no
saw
place
the
in
whole progression because I
anywhere
grew
that
up.
has the best view has the best real estate.
Yeah, I grew up in the 90s, late 90s to early 2000s.
How old are you? What year were you born?
I was born in 99.
And what's your social security number again?
I'm not going to tell you what hospital I was born in either, because
So-
apparently that can get.
Earlier, you talked about
St.
how
Jude's.
Hilltop was sort of like an immigrant haven too. Were
Yeah.
there like immigrant-based gangs, sort of like how you see
Yes,
like
now that you
Ah.
mention it.
MA form and like from Mexican immigrants?
Yeah,
in,
any
in
Hmong?
Los Angeles.
Yeah, the big ones were obviously the Crips and the Bloods.
Mhm.
There were the Hilltop Crips, the Hilltop Bloods, the East Side Pyrus,
Okay.
GDs, gang. I'm
Gang,
not going to do
gang.
any gang symbols
Wait,
or anything.
GD, what's that stand for?
I don't know. I don't study gangs enough to have
GDs,
my
the
facts right
goddams.
on that right.
That's what
Yeah,
I
the
call 'em.
gosh darns. They're actually the only white gang.
Oh, wow.
I just made that up.
That would be funny though.
But as I was saying, like, all these families moved up from LA to Tacoma,
All right.
and because like it's a very poor neighborhood, the main opportunity that they found here was selling crack, because it was the height of the crack epidemic. So like early 80s, they were building their business up here. Like,
Dude, crack is good for making money.
yeah, crack was amazing, especially in the 80s for
Right.
making money. So they were making good money out here, doing pretty well for themselves, and it slowly turned the reputation of Tacoma down further into the dumps, because up until that point, like, Tacoma was like the odd stepchild of Seattle. Like, they still looked down on us no matter what.
Right.
But now it was like cemented, and that's where the term Tacompton came from, is all
Okay.
the gangs moving into Hilltop and selling crack. And like,
Gotcha.
there was a point where every other house on Hilltop was a crack house,
Right.
and like that has obviously faded in
That's a
recent
bad
years.
ratio.
Yeah, it was. I think the estimate was up to 12,000 houses in Tacoma were crack houses,
That's wild.
which is a crazy ratio.
I mean, there
I wonder
was.
what it takes to be classified as a crack house. Like if you smoke crack one time in the house,
I think it's more apparent from the outside. Like, if you
Mm.
have boarded up windows and like the paint is chipping off, I think that's what determines.
that's all it takes.
That's all it takes.
Oof.
Yeah.
Man, I used to work at a homeowners association,
Uh-huh.
and everybody has chipped paint. If you look close enough.
Yeah.
So, You
And
mentioned
everybody's got a boarded up window if you look close enough.
when you talk about like, sort of like the late 80s being the heyday, if I'm not mistaken, the mayor of Tacoma compared Tacoma to Beirut in Lebanon, which was having a civil war at the time.
Yeah, yeah. It was apparently
seems like
that
an
bad. I
excessive-
can't speak to it myself,
Right, of course.
but like the 80s was the peak of when tensions were high between the gangs. Like there was a mini skirmish. Like in comparison to LA, it really was nothing. Like I
Right.
think a few like skirmishes happened. One big one was this guy, I forget his name, but he wasn't gang affiliated at all. He was just an Army Ranger
yeah.
at McCord who decided to put roots in Hilltop because
Yeah.
he was like, "Oh, dude, property values are so low.
Can't beat the view.
I'll buy a house for $10,000." And then he realized that he was in the middle of gang territory.
Yeah.
So one specific incident that happened
What
is
he didn't know was that he had entered gangland.
gangland. Yeah, if you wanted to be like an A&E type documentary, that's the voice that you
Oh,
would
yeah,
use.
yeah.
But he was like, "Oh my God, this neighborhood needs like some community action." So he just got together a bunch of his like ranger buddies at his house. They had a barbecue to like discuss how they were gonna fix the problem.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming they meant vigilante justice, and like the Crips rolled up, started threatening him, and it culminated with like an Alamo type shootout. Like he cut all the power to his house, had all his ranger buddies board up the house and like take up positions, and it's under dispute to this day who shot first.
Right.
But by the end of it,
I
like
heard it
there
was
were
Fredo.
injuries on both sides. Like a few people died. And it
Oh,
was,
really?
Yeah.
I'd always
Wait, I
heard
got
that
a
there were
question.
no deaths.
The Alamo, what's that again?
Well, Texans would say you'd never forget the Alamo, but it was a
Shootout.
big
It was
bat-
regular Hatfields and McCoys.
Yeah.
it was a big
was
battle
on
between
Ash Street,
Texans
Has
and
anyone
right?
ever made that
Mexicans.
comparison?
What?
That the Bloods and the Crips, they're real Hatfields and McCoys.
I'm sure it's been
I'm
made a
sure.
million times. But that was, I think that's called the Ash Street shootout.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think I read the article from like the military newspaper, Stars and Stripes. I went on their website to look through the archives, and I found the article for that. Such a fascinating little piece of
Tacoma
Tacoma
history.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, do you think like the cheap, land and real estate up there is why all the hospital campuses are up on Hilltop?
Oh,
Have you ever
interesting.
noticed that? Like,
That might be part of the reason. Yeah.
yeah,
Everything's about economics.
right.
Like, it's the reason why there's so much gang violence here, I would say.
Mhm.
Like, it's the reason, that's what attracted all of those families from LA to come here, is because it was cheaper than Seattle and Portland to
Okay.
live here. They were able to put a foot in the ground and build up their business, distributing drugs that they got from their network in LA, moved it
sure.
up here.
Do you have a favorite like building or place in Hilltop? Like what's
Ooh.
what's your spot?
Favorite building or spot in Hilltop? Well, that's another casualty of gentrification is like all the hot spots to hang out were just like bodegas, basically,
Right.
like corner stores.
Which one
There's
was
one
which corner? What's your corner store?
Clear near MLK. It's Mr. Kim's convenience store.
Mr.
Shout out Mr.
Kim's.
Kim.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
That's what
That's-
I was looking for. Hell yeah.
Yeah, and there was another one that was owned by an Arab man over by Jason Lee that closed down
Mm.
a few years ago. That was a hangout spot in middle school.
Now it's an escape room.
Yeah, now it's just probably an abandoned building
Wow,
or whatever.
Yeah, wishes it was a brewery.
Yeah, which is gonna be turned into a brewery at some point.
Gonna be turned into a dog treat bakery.
Yeah,
That
I would say
sucks.
if I had to choose a favorite building, it would be McCarver Elementary, where I went to elementary school. That was a pretty
Okay.
popular
Aw.
hangout spot.
Yeah.
Have you guys talked about the Xena Linux incident at all on this podcast?
No, I don't think we have.
Could inform us, Willie.
Oh yeah. When I was in elementary school, this happened while I was in elementary school. There was this girl, Xena Linux,
Mhm.
who was
How do you
abducted.
How do you spell that?
ZINA space LINIK.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's pretty phonetic.
Right.
But her family, I think they were not Middle Eastern, but the the country like close to Russia that's has a large Muslim population.
Okay.
There's
Not
a.
Kazakhstan.
Are you thinking of
Like
like the Chechnya?
Chechnya,
Yeah.
I think they were Chechnyan. They moved in, and their daughter Zena Linek was abducted and unfortunately killed. Like they found
Oh,
her body
wow.
in a dumpster.
Yeah.
So like one of the projects that they did in her memory was Zena Linek Park,
Okay.
which is attached to McCarver Elementary School. And I actually remember vividly, like in 5th grade, going up to the state capitol to request the funding
Wow.
for that park.
Sick.
So like I met the governor. Like in my house, I have a picture of my little nerdy ass with the governor because we
Who
were
was
all
the
asking
governor
her
at the time?
for money. I forget her name. It was some white lady. She looked like Hillary Clinton.
Was it
I'm not a big
It
names
wasn't-
guy.
It wasn't Gregoire.
No, it wasn't Gregoire. It was like I want to say 2007, 2008, around that time. Around the time Obama got elected.
Yeah.
Early
Okay.
early 2000s to 2010s.
I don't think I don't
You
really
sure it
know
was the
my.
governor?
Yeah, it was the governor. We went up to the state capitol building, had a meeting with the governor to ask for money to build this park. But that park's still there today, and it's a nice walk around the neighborhood. I've gone there a bunch of times to just hang out, walk through the
Yeah.
trees and everything.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it's still there.
it's still there.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
Does it have
built
like a plaque or a
pretty new.
statue or
No, they have a bunch of like mural art and like it's all themed around things that she liked. So it's like books that she liked. Like they have a bunch of mural art that's just like there's a big Easter egg because she loved Easter eggs.
Okay.
So like it's themed around things that
that she liked.
She
Oh, that's really
liked.
cute.
yeah,
Interesting.
it was really sweet that they did that
Yeah,
for
it
her.
was Gregoire. So
because like that's one of the biggest.
Shut up, James.
It wasn't Gregoire.
What the
It
fuck is
wasn't.
this?
I have the picture in my house. It was a woman. So unless Gregoire transitioned,
Christine Gregoire. Yeah, that's the lady.
Oh, I thought you were saying Gregoire.
Gregoire. That's her last name.
Oh yeah,
Christine Gregoire.
Christine Gregoire. Okay, yeah, that's
No.
the governor I was talking about. But that whole park project is like one of my biggest examples of the sense of community that you get in Hilltop because
That's very nice.
everyone that doesn't like Tacoma points to Hilltop as like that's the bad neighborhood in Tacoma. That's
And then
Tacoma.
you're like, wait, but what about that park that was dedicated to the girl who was abducted?
Well, like they're just wrong. Like Hosmer. Like.
Yeah, well that's more recent because like
Yeah.
now that Hilltop is getting gentrified, that's one of the byproducts of it. Is like poor people need a place to go because they're being priced out of
Moving
that
on
neighborhood.
south.
Well, like
So they just move further and further
I mean,
south.
our buddy Chandler Noble Hatch makes that joke, but it's kind of true. Hosmer's getting gentrified as well.
Yeah, yeah. Like
So.
soon, there's gonna be nowhere that poor people can
Yeah,
live.
where will the Kims go?
Yeah.
Yeah. So since we have you here, what's like a
What's the
tidbit
size of your
ti-
penis?
No.
What's the size of my penis? 6.5 inches. I'll give that one up.
What's like a
Why?
piece of Tacoma history they won't tell you in school?
Ooh.
Yeah, well,
good
really just-
question.
Any mention of Hilltop on its own
For sure.
at all won't be mentioned. Like they won't talk about there will be tragedies that they will talk about.
Right.
Like the Chinese expulsion is a big one where
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh my God, we're so sorry about that."
we covered that.
Yeah.
In
and then,
depth, actually.
I saw another documentary that was sanitized and it was really funny to me.
Mhm.
It was talking about the order during World War II to send all the Japanese people to camps.
Oh,
And
yeah.
like they had a side note that was like the mayor at the time was the only mayor to stand up and say no, and then they did it anyway. They were just like, we're so proud that our mayor said, please don't, please don't make us do that.
He was like, no, and then they were like, well, you only have to bus him to Puyallup, and he was like, okay,
Yeah.
you know what? we can do it. We can arrange that.
They made it like a big thing that he made a little stink about it.
Yeah.
To the president.
Interesting. Yeah. So, like, Hilltop, obviously, like the light rail extensions coming in. Do you think that's sort of like the end of Hilltop as like people knew it once that light rail is installed, or do you think Hilltop will still remain sort of a distinct neighborhood?
I think the community groups who like care about Hilltop as a neighborhood will keep doing what they do, because they're still, as long as the churches that are there are still functioning and have, good membership, I think that
the churches are the pillars.
they really are. Yeah, the churches are the pillar of Hilltop as a community.
Did you go to any church events? Like, was that kind of a thing you do even if you weren't a member?
We went to a bunch of Baptist churches and a few
What's
Episcopal.
your favorite church on the hill?
Forget the name of it. It's right next to Big M Stained Glass. That was a church that we frequented for a while.
That's a smart place to be a church. Like,
yeah, we got the stained glass right there.
Yeah, for sure.
But I would always just go to like my friends' churches, and like black churches are amazing. I love black churches so much because there's free food. It's so good.
Okay.
Like they'll make fried chicken and collard greens and mac and cheese, and the plates are immaculate.
Wow.
Like that's the problem. That's the bone I have to pick with white churches is there's almost never food.
What do you mean by immaculate?
Like amazing, immaculate.
Okay.
I guess that's just an adjective I would use for that.
I got
You don't want to use that one around church, or lest you might end up pregnant.
Yeah, don't want an immaculate conception from the collard greens.
Yeah, no. One thing I've noticed on Hilltop, there's a candy store there. You know the one
places that are called candy stores.
Well, you know the one that I'm talking about. There's like an old candy store on Hilltop. They like handmade candies there. And somebody was telling me like Tacoma used to sort of be like a place where a bunch of people made candy.
Big time candy manufacturers.
Yeah, exactly.
There's only 2 left, I think.
Really?
Yeah. I can't remember what they are.
Tacoma used to have a lot of like big things in our area, like things that I think of off the top of my head. We still have the third largest urban park in the country.
Right.
What?
Wright Park.
Yeah.
That's the third largest
in the country?
Yeah, right behind Central Park, and then
that was the easy one.
the park in San Francisco. I
Mhm.
forget the name of it, but ours is the third because it's like in the middle of a city.
Okay.
That's like the definition of it. It's in the middle of an urban area, so it's the third largest.
I'd have to see that.
Suck on that, St. Louis Arch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the smallest national park.
Yeah.
So that's not an urban park at all.
It is an
Yeah.
urban park. It's
No,
a
it's a
national
national
park,
park.
but it's
I'm
still
sure they
it's still in the
finagled-
middle of a city.
I'm
It's a
sure they
national
finagled the
urban
definition
park.
of it for that list, but that's just what I heard from in the grapevine
Yeah,
from
'cause,
my
like, I've been
history
to-
teacher.
Savannah, they have a big park, where I feel like maybe the definition of urban.
I mean, Wright Park's like what, 135 acres, I think.
Is it really that
Yeah,
big?
it's big.
It's pretty big, yeah.
Yeah, it's huge.
Okay.
You don't think it is from the outside
Because
because
it's got those
it's
nice
only like a
slopes
few
to it.
blocks in terms of
Oh.
like measuring it by
interesting.
streets, but
Tacoma does have big blocks, I feel
Yeah.
like. We got big blocks.
it also used to have the largest amphitheater,
Oh.
the Stadium Bowl.
Yeah.
Like presidents would come to talk
yeah,
there.
yeah.
We also had one of the biggest urban markets, sort of like Pike Place. Like before Pike Place, we had a large urban market in downtown Tacoma.
That's pretty cool.
But yeah, that candy shop that you were talking about is one of the remnants of that. It's
Okay.
just like people coming and
Making-
doing their own thing,
making candy.
making candy, saltwater taffy, that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've heard the Tacoma Dome is like one of the bigger indoor arenas in the
Oh, for
country
sure.
by seating capacity. Yeah.
That's like a through line in a lot of Tacoma history is like City of Destiny. People would build things in anticipation of people coming.
Right.
Like
Yeah, I mean, look at
Stadium is a big example of that. It was supposed to be like a super fancy hotel, and then that didn't go through because of one of the big economic crashes, and they just turned it into a school.
a lot of hotels I've noticed, like if you go downtown and see a cool old building, a lot of times it used to be a hotel.
Yeah, either it used to be a hotel or it used to be like some commerce building or something
Yeah.
like that.
They built the terminus in Seattle.
Yeah. They got us on that
Somebody
one.
did build a terminus here. Was it Northern Pacific finally? Because Northern Pacific had offices here.
Yeah, they were going to.
Okay, they were
Northern
going
Pacific was planning to, and that's
Gotcha.
where Union Station comes from.
Okay.
It's now the Tacoma or the Washington State History Museum,
Okay.
but that was supposed to be the terminus.
Gotcha.
Was that station?
Interesting.
But then Seattle stole it from us, famously.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking with somebody yesterday. Tacoma sort of lost its cool old train station. Like, if you go to Seattle, you have King Street Station.
Yeah,
Portland has its Union Station, which is beautiful.
Yeah, we
But-
converted ours
yeah.
for some reason.
I
We were like,
mean-
we don't need this anymore.
Yeah, so I feel like if you get off the train in Tacoma, like you're right there on what is it, Freight House Square, right? Where
Yeah.
the new Amtrak is, and it's kind of like wah wah, you know.
I think that was in part a byproduct of how bad it was in like the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Yeah.
Is because like before UW Tacoma was built, down that area of downtown Tacoma was just like no man's land.
Yeah, that's
So a
what
lot of
I've-
boarded up buildings, a lot of like
yeah
bad infrastructure.
derelict factories.
I'm pretty sure that train station was derelict for a long period of time until they finally converted it into a museum.
Yeah, I'm sure. And like the thing is, I've heard a lot of people say that like UW Tacoma was like the big catalyst for sort of the downtown revival.
Yeah, absolutely. Like
And the Glass Museum is part of that as well. And
Yeah.
I mean,
that wave really came in like the late 90s and early 2000s.
When was the Glass Museum built? It must
Uh,
have been in your lifetime, right?
it was, I want to say,
early 2000s.
yeah, like 2004 maybe.
Yeah, because I remember it throughout my childhood, but like my memories start around like 5 years old.
Yeah.
So
I
if you ask me
remember-
anything before 2005, I'm probably not
I feel
going
like
to
I
know it.
remember it being new.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about like the Hotel Murano, super cool. It used to just be like a regular old Sheraton, right?
Yeah,
And then they built the
Chihulified it.
convention. They built the convention center there.
yeah.
Um,
And then
so-
now you have the Marriott, the new Marriott
Yeah.
hotel.
yeah, which
Which
I
is funny
remember.
because I can see it from my house. Like, there's a comedian that came through who did a weekend at Nate's,
Okay.
and he like posted a reel, and he was like, "I'm in Seattle," and I was like, "No, you're fucking not. You're not in Seattle. You're in Tacoma. Admit it." And he took it out of his window, and I was like, "I know what window that is." So I like zoomed in on my phone to the window, and I took a picture, and I was so tempted to just DM him and be like, "This you?"
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
He must have been a pretty good comic if he went to Nate's and didn't end up staying at the Holiday Inn and went all the way to the Marriott, you know.
I feel like, yeah, I don't know if that was a business decision he made when he bought that club to just be like, oh, we can just have the comics stay in the building.
I
Yeah,
wonder if they do.
Some of them probably do.
I might.
I don't know.
It seems convenient.
You'd think it would be nice.
You-
You'd get some kind of a deal.
You just get an unpaid feature spot at a weekend, but you book a room at the Holiday Inn
Yeah.
anyways. You're like, I
Just
don't
to
feel
tell
like
yourself, I made it.
I made it. Me. Look, I asked myself, what's the line in which you can declare yourself like a professional comedian? For me, bar's really low. If you have to claim the income you've made on your taxes, professional comedian.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Mine is even lower. I think mine is probably the lowest. I think, like, if you get paid to go on stage at all, I think you can call yourself a comedian. But,
Well, if you get
know,
paid at all, you got to declare it, dude.
yeah. Yeah.
I think you have the same bar.
Same bar, yeah. We have the same bar. I'm
Oh,
just being
okay.
a bit more formal about it. You know, when I
Yeah.
walk into H&R Block, I'm just like, yeah, I do have another source of income. I'm a professional
I would like to
comedian.
declare $50 in additional income from doing comedy.
Yeah, but
So, do we have any Tacoma-related things on the horizon?
yes. Apparently, there's going to be an EDM festival called Thunderdome at the Tacoma Dome
Oh, yeah.
over the weekend.
This
So-
weekend?
This weekend?
Yes. Yes, and it's
So after
Do you
this episode
recognize-
comes
do you
out?
recognize
Yes.
any names?
I don't recognize any of the names, but if that's something you're interested in, it's called
It's big
it's
time.
called Thunderdome.
Dude,
Yeah.
Welcome to the. Do you know what they say about the Thunderdome?
2 men enter, one
One
man
man
leaves.
leaves. What if that was true about the Tacoma Dome? I feel like it would take forever for everyone to make it in.
Yeah, I
'Cause
mean,
you got to enter 2 at a time.
yeah, that
It'd take
would
a lot
take-
less time for people to come out, though.
It would take a lot less time for
Mm.
people to come out.
Yeah.
But yeah, if that's something you're into,
What was that? Tina Turner.
Tina Turner. In Mad Max Beyond
Mad
the
Max
Thunderdome.
Beyond the Thunderdome. There's Tina Turner was in it.
Okay. Huh. But yeah, that's something that I just saw on my radar.
Oh, but this is just Thunderdome. It's not Beyond the Thunderdome.
Yeah, this is regular Thunderdome.
This is regular Thunderdome.
Regular Thunderdome.
Okay.
Yeah. At first
This is pre-Thunderdome.
So it's kind of like when I saw it online, I wasn't really sure what it was, and I just assumed it was professional wrestling. I saw
Oh, yeah, that
Thunderdome,
makes
and I'm
sense.
like, it has to be professional wrestling, and no, it's EDM. So
There we go.
yep. Does anybody know when the professional bull riding's happening? I think it's coming up.
I think it is coming up too. I think it's February.
That should be fun. I think I might go to that.
Yeah, I'd be interested.
Yeah.
Tacoma Dome has such a wide variety of events that come through because
Nate
they'll
Jackson
have.
had a really good bit about going to the bull riding last year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember how it goes.
Yeah, you bring up a good point because last cast we probably riffed for about 20 minutes just talking about Monster Jam
Monster
and just
Jam.
like how much of a like logistical like hurdle it is to have an event like that
Oh,
inside
yeah.
the Tacoma Dome.
Yeah, because you're destroying a bunch of cars. Like
Or you just need so much dirt.
you need to transport all that dirt in there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, the nice thing is we got
Do you think they
Schnitzer
bring the
Steel.
dirt from town to town? We just do all the same bits again.
Yeah, we'll just do, we'll just go over the whole episode.
Just in
again.
case you didn't listen to last week's episode.
But yeah, I mean it's very
Okay.
very versatile venue.
Yeah. Okay. So we got the EDM show coming up. I got anything on your radar, Matt?
No, nothing in just general Tacoma events that I can think
Mm.
of.
I'm gonna be out of town next weekend.
Nice.
This upcoming weekend, so I don't even have. I'm gonna be in Olympia. But,
Yeah.
it's
Olymp-
a bit different.
An
Olympia's
hour out of
sort
town.
of-
Olympia, Tumwater.
Yeah, it's sort of in our area of coverage. I mean, it
Yeah.
is Thurston County, but we have had a few of their beers on the show.
That's
so,
true. That is true.
So
If they're within beer drinking range.
well, I mean, if that's the case, then we're gonna
Yeah, I've
talk.
had a
We're gonna
Hefeweizen
talk
before.
about Indonesia.
Yeah, I rep the Bintang,
Yeah.
an Indonesian beer,
Mm.
Nice.
and I do have a shirt for it. So
Oh,
I'm glad you
that's-
said Indonesian because that's the only one I would have been able to pull.
Yeah, well, I knew you had talked about it before.
There you go, the
I think
lemon
when we were
Bintang.
talking about favorite beers
Yeah.
once. Yeah. I still got to take a trip out to the E9 brewery. I still haven't gone out there. That was like one of the first things we talked about on this podcast.
Well, and we also got to go to the Narrows Brewing too.
We got to go there too.
There's so many
We got to go to Seven
breweries.
Seas together.
We've got some field trips ahead of us.
We do have field trips ahead of us, but I think it'll be fun. And maybe we'll even film a little bit of it. But I think that might be about it for us. But
I think we can wrap it up and say thank you all for joining us on another Monday Morning Grit, and we'll see you potentially next Monday.
yeah,
morning for some grit.
for some grit, and thank you to Matt for joining us. And
Yeah, thanks for having me.
to giving
Here,
us
here.
teaching us.
Schooling these young bloods.